This exercise is to predict a metathesis reaction. First of all, we need to predict the identity of the precipitate that forms when aqueous solution of barium chloride and potassium sulfate are mixed, and then we will be able to write the balance equation for this reaction. So, we are given two ionic reactants and asked to predict the insoluble products that they form. So the plans that we need to achieve this here is that we need to write the ions present in the reactants and exchange the anions between the two cations. Once we have written the chemical formulas for this product, then we can use the table 4.1 to determine which is insoluble in water, knowing the products are also allow us to write the equation for the reaction. So here we have these two reactants, and we need to separate, we need to dissociate both of them. These are soluble ionic compounds, and that will produce four different ions. And this first, remember that this first is a cation, this one is an anion, this is a cation, this is the one that is an anion for this second reactant. So we need to interchange this cation with this anion and this cation with this anion to create the new product. So the reactants we have here, the barium with a +2, chlorine is -1, that's why we have 2 here of the chloride, potassium +1, and sulfate is -2, that's why we have 2 potassium here. So here, as I mentioned before, we can combine these two ions, potassium chloride and barium sulfate, to create the two products. Now that we have this, we can check here in the solubility table to see which of them, if one of them is insoluble. So the sulfates mentioned that all of the sulfates are insoluble, but with these exceptions. What we have, and barium is one of those exceptions. So barium sulfate is going to be a solid, and this one is going to be insoluble, while potassium chloride, all the chloride will be soluble with the exception of silver, mercury, and lead, and this is potassium, so that means that this will be soluble, okay? So the final reaction will be barium chloride in aqueous solution is a soluble plus sulfate potassium, also aqueous. Remember, the sulfates are going to be aqueous without any of this cation, as we can see here, and same with the chloride. The chloride will be soluble compounds with chloride, with the exception of these three cations, and barium is not one of those. So that's why both of them are aqueous in the reactant, and will produce the barium sulfate, that this one is a solid, and potassium chloride that also will be aqueous in solution.